Members, it's the appointed time. We have a quorum, a call to order of the meeting of the Finance Committee. I remind members that in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, members should disclose the nature of any direct or indirect pecuniary interests relating to the items under discussion at the meeting before they speak on the items. I also draw members' attention to Rule 84 on voting in case of direct pecuniary interest. The first agenda item is FCR 2026-2027-28. Members are invited to approve an increase of the approved commitment by $1 billion from $4 billion to $5 billion to take forward the acquisition plan covering all 8 blocks of Wang Court. The Housing Bureau consulted the panel on housing on the long-term housing arrangements for Wang Court on 23rd of February. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I remind members that at the end of the question and answer session, I will put the paper to vote. Would members please note the progress of the meeting and come back to the conference room for voting. We have in attendance today Deputy Financial Secretary Mr. Michael Wang, Ms. Winnie Ho, Secretary for Housing, and Ms. Estrella Chung, Deputy Secretary for Housing. I will now ask Mr. Stanley Chairman of the panel on housing, to report on the deliberations on the panel. Thank you, Chair. At its special meeting on 23rd of February this year, the panel on housing discussed the long-term housing arrangements for residents of Wang Court in Taipo. Members supported the proposal put forward by the administration, considering that it would enable the residents' long-term housing arrangements to be addressed expeditiously and provide them with a range of options. On the other hand, members expressed serious concern regarding the long-term arrangements for residents of Wang House and consider that the administration should determine as soon as possible, in accordance with the prevailing views of the residents, whether Wang House should be included in the administration's acquisition scheme. Members also suggested that the administration should provide greater assistance and adopt a flexible approach towards owners who, due to special circumstances, are unable to complete the necessary procedures for the sale of their property on time. At the same time, the administration should plan early how it is going to deal with individual cases where owners do not accept the acquisition offer. Furthermore, taking into account the general views of society, members requested that the administration step up their publicity efforts to ensure that the public understands that the arrangements of acquisition of titles of property have already taken into account the principle of the proper use of public resources. The administration has responded to members' questions and concerns at the meeting. That's it for my report. Thank you, Mr. Stanley. We have 24 members who have pressed the request to speak button. Let me read out the order in which members are going to speak. Mr. Lam Man Kwong, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Kenneth Fok, Mr. Chen Ha-kan, Mr. Tan Ka-Piu, Mr. Lam Chun Sing, Mr. Chen Ha-feng, Ms. Maggie Chen, Mr. Ray Wong, Professor Chan Wing Kwong, Mr. Andrew Fan, Mr. Nick Chan, Mr. Jonathan Lam Port, Mr. Dennis Lam, Mr. Chen Siu Hong, Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Lee Chen Kong, Ms. Christine Fong, Ms. Chen Wing Yan, Mr. Dominic Lee. Well, is Ms. Chen Wing Yan or versus Mr. Lau Man Kwong? Wait, who's the first one to speak? Well, we have several other members. Mr. Vincent Ching, Professor Alex Fan, Ms. Carmen Khan, and Ms. Jenny Man. I'll assign a 4-minute time limit. Questions and answers included. I will stop your question or answers right at the 4-minute mark today. And please, today's question should be related to financial matters. Ms. Jovi Chen. Thank you, Chair. After the Wang Court fire, we have seen government departments and different sectors of the community working hard to support the emergency relief work. The incident is unprecedented, but we do understand the administration is trying their best. The FTU is supporting residents in different ways as well as supporting the government's relief work. We have set up around the clock emergency support hotline as well as emergency relief fund. We've also provided assistance to affected households. I remember last year as an FTU representative, I led a visit to different properties for the residents. We went to High Tech, for example, and just last month we led Wangfu Court residents to view other properties. I think with the long-term housing arrangements, this is quite meaningful. We have led Wangfu Court residents to look at different properties, and a resident actually told me after signing papers at a law firm, they are relieved. They want to move on to a new property to settle as soon as possible. I support the funding proposal. I would also like to convey some of the concerns of residents. According to paragraph 11, we have a timetable. So when can the owners receive the relevant funds, and what is the range of amount that they will receive be? Thank you. Mr. Michael Wang. Thank you, Ms. Jovi Chen. We thank the contributions of the FTU. And regarding the members' questions, we have already signed 10 odd of them. We, of course, want to move as fast as possible. We wouldn't say the progress is ideal, but we are just trying our best. For those who have signed contracts, we have over 760 households, specifically 769 households. So we have in total 1,700 odd. We have 90% who have accepted the offers, and 43% of them have already signed a binding contract. Some are of simpler cases, some are just receiving the money, some are undergoing flat-for-flat arrangement. We have some more to do, but we will do these as soon as possible. We will calculate the amount by area, as well as whether they have paid premiums. So it can range from 3 odd million to 5 odd million. Most of those who are paid are 3 million odd, and we do understand many of the residents who have received the money are relieved, as the member said. Thank you. Mr. Lam Kwong. Thank you, Chair. Before at Finance Committee meetings, we often talk about wanting to save money, but with the $1 billion, we of course support the full use of the amount so as to give a renewed chance for Wangfu Court residents. But I do note on social media there are some misleading narratives or some conspiracy theories or misunderstandings or misinterpretations regarding the administration's proposal to acquire the titles of flats of Wangfu Court, about the ownership arrangements, about the terms of the agreement for sale and purchase. That has really shook the confidence of residents. We want to make sure we clear up the misconceptions because it affects whether residents are willing to accept the relevant arrangements. We also have a dedicated team being in touch with residents. How can we make sure the residents receive the correct information? With the use of the money, we want to be flexible. Before September, perhaps due to estate arrangements or unclear ownership, or we can't identify the owner, there may be some delay. How will you deal with such cases? That's what I want to hear from the Deputy Financial Secretary. Thank you. Deputy Financial Secretary. Well, I would say some reports are not exactly correct. I wouldn't say it is malicious in nature, but they should provide correct information, which is why we have the engagement team getting in touch with residents. We also issue press releases to make clarifications. Some say the corporation would just be a shell company, it will go broke at any time, and we actually clear that up by saying that it has the full support of the government. And after making clarifications, I think the misconceptions are immediately cleared up. About what Mr. Leung asked for the second question, for estate-related cases, indeed, they may not be handled in the first phase because we have to first find out who the beneficiary is. But the arrangements will still apply to the specific residents. We will still have units available for their choosing. There is great flexibility for those cases. Mr. Tang Fei, thank you, Chair. I have two questions. For one, in paragraph 5, we have around 77% indicating their wish to join the plan, but we still have 20-odd% owners where we don't know what they want. And in future, dealing with their ownership matters. The administration may have to undergo some litigation and perhaps compulsory sale or something less serious mediation costs. How will we deal with such cases? And it says that in the Wang House, if we have less than 75% of the owners signing the agreement for sale and purchase, the administration may not go through with the acquisition. Touch wood, if that happens, what will the government do? Thank you. Deputy Financial Secretary, thank you, Mr. Tang Fei, for your questions. This is actually something from before. We have more owners signing the acceptance of offer, and we have reached 90% of the 1,984 households. Basically, in future, as I said many times, we never expected all owners to accept the offer of the administration, while we do think the offer is quite acceptable. What happens in future, a possibility is we will legislate to get the ownership back. We have to make sure it fulfills the requirements under Articles 6 and 105 of the Basic Law. We need to provide reasonable compensation as well. We will discuss with the Legislative Council on what to do. In terms of amount of compensation, as I said earlier, we will discuss with the Legislative Council on that. Today's amount won't matter because today's amount is for acquisition. And in the end, if we do not use up the commitment, it will go back to the coffers. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth Fok.
Mr. Kenneth Fok, on behalf of G19, I support the funding proposal. We support the government's way of handling the matter, and this is prioritizing the urgent matter. And a lot of work has gone into this, so that the majority of the Wang owners would be joining the scheme. So we support the funding proposal. We heard some voices that in Wang Fok Court, including Wang House, they have different orientation. That the acquisition prices are 8,000 and 10,500. Some said that for high floor, different orientation, that there should be different prices. How does the government view this? Now, you may say that the blocks have been ravaged by the fires and the value is not high, but Wang House has not been damaged. What is the government's take on this one? Secretary? Thanks very much, Mr. Fok. We're not talking about an insurance concept. If LegCo were to legislate to get back the flats, then the individual flats will be evaluated. If we have to use the land resumption ordinance, the land tribunal will have to sit in judgment and come up with a ruling. Now here we launched this plan to meet the long-term housing needs of the residents. Wang House and other blocks, there is no difference at all. Now, for Wang House, we'd like to intervene mainly because, if I may repeat, because a lot of the Wang owners don't really want to move back because of the psychological distress. They're worried about the depreciation. They may not be able to sell their property, and there will also be the maintenance issue. Now, 70% at the early days I would like to join. Nowadays, there are 248 units in Wang 221 owners, or 89.1% or close to 90% of the residents would be inclined to accept the proposal. So we're not using the same logic per se here. I hope you would appreciate that. Mr. Gary Chen, Chairman, thank you. Since the blaze, we see that the chief executive down through to the secretaries and the frontline civil servants, they have devoted a lot of energy and time to helping the residents, and this is something that we should commend them on. Second, regarding the long-term housing arrangements, they are open up to the Wang owners. This is a big relief for them. The previous proposals have excluded them. Many Wang residents told us that they are really concerned about what's going to happen next. Now, this proposal would put things clearer for them. Just recently, I've attended the viewing tour together with the residents. At the very beginning, they were so desperate, and now there is hope on their part for the future. Now, some are asking us whether they should choose 13th floor, 14th, or 15th floor, and they have identified one block, one particular orientation. The only choice they would exercise would be the floors. So they find the government proposal acceptable. They'd like to see this through as soon as possible. Now, with regard to the funding proposal, I think the government has balanced the public voices and also the needs of the disaster victims. I'd like to put a question here, if I may. I heard a piece of news that DCS Warner-Church said that $300,000 worth of rental assistance would be made available. Would that be included in this $1 billion? Second, for Wang House residents, their block is undamaged, and they've been to their flats to retrieve the items. Since they're allowed to join the scheme, would there be an additional opportunity for them to retrieve their furniture or their personal belongings? You may be allowing them to move things out of the $1 billion. Perhaps you allow them to move the furniture from the old flat to the new flat, and that would save quite a bit of taxpayers' money. DFS. Chairman, I would request more than 4 minutes because these are two significant issues. Rental subsidy. Mr. Church made the point this morning, and there is a press release that this is an enhancement. Now, there are 4 tranches, $15,000 each at the beginning. If you receive cash, then you would have received 2 tranches, and there are the third and fourth. Now, after consideration of different views, we will make the payment for the third and fourth tranches anyway. Now, maybe you have already moved in to a new flat, and there is a 3-month flexibility. If they're into the third tranche, then there will be no fourth for them. Now, today we decided that for those who have taken part in the scheme, there would be 4 tranches of subsidies. Now, the source of the subsidy doesn't come out of taxpayers' money. It comes out of the support fund. If I may, Chairman. Thank you. Thanks very much, Chairman. Earlier, we arranged for 2 batches of going back to their flats. Some have already got their important documents, like passport and so on. There are some residents who would like to retrieve the large items like sofas and so on. Now they are selling the titles to the government. Now, let's say they're done with the conveyancing procedure, and that may be 45 to 90 days, depending on the circumstances. We'd like to put it beyond doubt that we'd like to make it empathetic and reasonable. If they see the need to retrieve the items, there will be arrangement for them to do so. If they see the need to do so, they can approach the engagement team. They can approach the social workers attached to them. We will make the suitable arrangement. Mr. Gary Chan has got a point there. Our direction is that depending on the occupation time of the new flat, we will make the arrangement. There are 1,300 households that are living in the transitional housing, and the large household items, they simply cannot accommodate them, and it costs them a lot of money to hire a temporary storage, and the DCS will certainly make the arrangement there subsequently. Mr. Bill Tang? Chairman, thank you. Last time, we had a meeting on the 25th or 26th of February after the budget. The following day of the budget, I put the same question. If Wang residents were to be incorporated into the acquisition plan, how do you deal with the payment? Now, 5 months on, this is really happening. I'm really grateful to the administration, and we've overcome so many hurdles. First, at the beginning, we talked about 50%, then 3/4, and they have to mail the letter of acceptance. Now it is more than close to 90%, and this is really quite an achievement. I think the engagement team has done an awful lot of work, and I'm truly grateful to them for that. Now, when they see the engagement teams, there is a much better rapport, and there is a greater trust and greater confidence. I thank the whole government team on this one. Now, coming back to the financial matters, $1 billion. That's for the Wang residents to sign the S&P agreement. Like Gary put a question before, I'd like to clarify on this. Now, in the S&P agreement, the solicitor also said the same. Once they signed on the dotted line, they sell the title to the company, and the properties in the units will belong to the government. We asked them whether this is the case, and they were told yes. They do have a lot of misgivings whether they should sign on the dotted line because they haven't retrieved all the items that they'd like to retrieve. So in the past fortnight or so, a lot of the Wang residents would like me to get some response from the administration. The DFS said in answer to earlier questions that we should treat everybody in the same way. There are some who have already bought the home insurance. So when they sign this agreement, would the government be dealing with the insurance, or would they be handling the insurance themselves? DFS. Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Tang. You have done a lot of work for the viewing of the flats. Now, first of all, insurance. We're acquiring the title, and that there is the fire insurance up to $2 billion. If they are taking out their own insurance package, or we don't take over them, they will deal with them themselves. Some of them have already collected the money. That's the situation. That there is another scenario in the agreement that this is delivering vacant possession, because if we pay up, you have to deliver vacant possession. In actual operation, we will make it empathetic. Now, this is not a unique arrangement, even for the lands department. If they need to repossess a certain premises, they would allow some flexibility for people to move their own properties out. Definitely, if they see the need to retrieve their belongings, there is an opportunity for them to do so. In Wang Court, it is different because we have to make arrangement. Blocks A to G, we have to deploy a lot of manpower to assist. We will do the same.
Mr. Lam Chin Sing, thank you, Chair. I support the funding proposal. I, of course, also want the funds to be fully used up to help the residents. We have quite a positive result. We have 80% signing the offer, but this is just an intention. They would have to sign the agreement for sale and purchase before October. So there is still some uncertainty. We had the one social worker per household arrangement. We have had some surveys conducted. 12% of residents said they would not accept the acquisition offer. Have you tried to find out from these residents what they are concerned about, what difficulties they potentially have? How can we encourage them to accept the offer? Because after all, this can help them. The Deputy Financial Secretary said if in the end a minority of the owners are not going to accept the acquisition offer, the administration may legislate for the resumption of the titles. What is the threshold for minority? And basically, what will trigger the administration to do that? I believe there will be other costs involved, and we may need additional funding for that. Deputy Financial Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lam Chin Sing, for your questions. With other compensation, it will not be related to the $1 billion. We will just seek funding approval from the Council then. We won't discuss the specific legislative proposals today. We are talking about mutually agreed arrangements where we want to acquire the titles of the flats. This is very clear, but then if we want to go into legislative proposals, it may not be as clear at the moment. It can be confusing. As I said earlier, 90% of the owners already signed the offer, their intention to join the government's plan. And the remaining 10%, actually 30 to 40% of the remaining 10% didn't outright reject the offer. They just needed to discuss this option more. So the deadline for sending in their acceptance is actually at the end of August. It's just that for those who want to acquire or replace their flats or exchange their flats, they would want to do that as soon as possible, take advantage of first phase arrangements. Some other cases, they have estate related cases, so it may take longer, but there are indeed some who just don't want to talk about it at all, and we respect their wishes. Thank you. Mr. Chen Hafeng, thank you. Chair, I thank the administration for doing much work in the recent past, and we can see close to 89.1% of the households are willing to join the government's long-term housing arrangement plan. I think this is better than we anticipated, and it definitely contradicts the narratives online. I have a question, however, for the $1 billion, is it going to be enough for the number of people that are potentially going to join the plan? And can you share with us some figures on how many are exchanging for flats, how many want to receive money? And before you obtained funding of $6.4 billion and additional, well, 2.8, in the end it's $6.8 billion, so it was for 1,736 households. Now the $1 billion will be for 248 units, so approximately $4.03 million per unit. We have a difference of 110,000 per unit. Is it because we did not have an accurate assessment before, or are we trying to be prudent here? In this case, do we actually need the full $1 billion here? Deputy Financial Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chen Haofeng, for your questions. We had in mind $6.8 billion and $1.8 billion is going to come out of the support fund. So basically, $6.8 billion divided by 7 would be $900 odd million. When we give a figure, we can't be accurate to the cent. We do want to have some more funds for contingency. Well, with the other question, with the selection of different options, I do not have specific figures here, but I can give some general figures. For those who want money, it's approximately 10 odd percent. And we have approximately 90% they want to have flat for flat arrangement, or 30-40% of them want to get the money first, and then they would want to acquire subsidized sale flats or housing society flats. And even for those under the flat for flat arrangement, they don't need to pay the sum to the housing society, so that they will have a better cash flow situation when they move into the relevant flats later. We will communicate with the different parties on this. Ms. Maggie Chen. Thank you, Chair. We had $4 billion for 7 blocks, and we have an additional $1 billion now for all 8 blocks. So before we have the 7 blocks plan, where we have in mind plans to construct a cinema or social facilities, with the $5 billion total now, it also covers the sum for conversion of facilities. That's my first question. For the second question, let's say we have 75% of the owner's titles that will be acquired by the administration. Since the government has acquired some titles, with the maintenance of property, the fees for, say, security services, insurance management services, would that be covered by the $5 billion, or would that come from other funding sources? Well, this is not exactly relevant to the increase in commitment, but perhaps the Deputy Financial Secretary can give an answer. Well, the total amount for acquisition is $6.8 billion. $2.8 billion came from support funds, so we asked for an additional funding of $4 billion earlier. It was just for the acquisition of ownership. For the park or community facilities, we actually made it very clear the land resumed will not be sold as residential units in future. We had to make clear of that before, due to some misconceptions. If we did not have adequate internal resources, we will seek further funding from the council. For the other ancillary costs with the units, management of the units, they are not covered by the $5 billion. Thank you. Mr. Ray Wang, I want to ask, is it the case that for the $1 billion, it would be the total cost for the 248 units? Deputy Financial Secretary, yes, basically, we are already aware of the area of the units as well as whether the units have had premiums paid. The amount is based on the circumstances and derived from that. Thank you. Professor Chen Wing-Kong. Thank you, Chair. I 100% support the funding proposal. I believe the long-term housing plan is reasonable and compassionate. I just have a short follow-up question about paragraph 3 of the paper. We have the acquisition prices calculated based on the saleable area. And with the amount we have, do you assume all residents of Wangfu Court accept the acquisition offer? I also want to ask, for those who are not willing to accept the offer, what support measures do we have from the administration for them? After completing the acquisition procedure, if we have leftovers from the $7.8 billion, will it go back to the public coffers for financial expenditure of the government, or will it be used on supporting Wangfu Court residents? Let me make clear, we are only talking about the $1 billion additional commitment today. The $6 billion commitment before is irrelevant, but I'll let the Deputy Financial Secretary answer a relevant question. Thank you, Chair. When we reserve a unit, we are prudent and we have in mind all 1,984 households accept the relevant offer. And if not all households accept the offer, it would just go back to the public coffers. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Fan, as the paper provided by the administration pointed out, Wangchi House is not affected. Now, the administration is spending an additional $1 billion to acquire titles of Wangchi House units. I definitely understand that. But for the $1 billion used, whether you are going to demolish the buildings after that or redevelop the buildings or just consolidate the buildings, no matter which proposal it is, you will need to seek additional funding from the Legislative Council. If you have in mind some preliminary plans, why don't you make clear of this now so that affected residents are confident that the administration is trying to help them and they won't believe the different rumors? Thank you. Mr. Michael Wang, thank you. Mr. Andrew Fan, with the $1 billion, it is not related to the construction of a park or other facilities in future. We will come back to the Legislative Council for these other proposals. First, we have to unify the ownership, and legislation is a possibility, and if it is the case, we will do some work on that next year. As it involves the basic law, there may be judicial reviews lodged. We expect that only in the third year we will be able to unify the ownership, and we will make sure to explain to the public what our budget and plans are. Thank you. Mr. Nick Chan. Thank you, Chair. We are doing good work in developing long-term housing plan for Wangfu Court residents. I appreciate the administration's work. We have a minority of owners not being able to confirm whether they are going to join the government's long-term housing plan. With the $1 billion, have you accounted for costs on handling such cases. Thank you. Mr. Michael Wang, for the $1 billion, it is just acquisition costs. For legal costs, we would like to thank in particular the support of the Tonghua Group of Hospitals. We do not compel residents to make use of the legal services of the Tonghua Group of Hospitals. If they want to hire their own lawyers, they can. But basically, the Tonghua Group of Hospitals legal team has helped with the handling of the transfer of titles, and they have increased the total funding to $30 million, I believe. If that's not enough, we will have resources internally to support the relevant operations. Thank you. Mr. Jonathan Lamport, thank you, Chair. The BPA and I support the administration's long-term housing arrangements for Wangful Court residents, as well as the $1 billion additional commitment. If owners accept the acquisition offer under the special sales scheme, will the $1 billion be made use of to pay stamp duty on behalf of the residents? Thank you. Well, if the owners are selling their flats to the government, they do not have to pay stamp duty. But in the general market, if they acquire property, they would have to pay stamp duty. If the unit is worth less than $4 million, it would just be $100. But before, we have provided different kinds of support to Wangful Court residents, so they should be able to pay such stamp duties. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you, Chair. I actually suggested to the Housing Bureau they should have an expert team set up to engage with residents, and we also have a specific engagement team. They have done well. On 6th of January, I went to the Wangful Court fire site, and on 23rd of May, I was a care team member helping residents move their stuff, and I could see the condition was quite bad. We had 5 or 6 tents there to move stuff, and I thank government departments, especially police officers, for working hard and doing much work. I note the rental grant arrangement will expire on 31st of December 2027. I expect we can make good use of the sponsored funds as well as public money. We have close to 90% of the residents indicating their wish to join the government's long-term housing arrangement plan. What will we do with the remaining 10%? Will we upgrade the current engagement team to a super engagement team to try even harder? I know it is difficult for them, but I hope they can do more and do better. I really don't want to go down the legislation path. As the Deputy Financial Secretary said, we respect the basic law and other property rights laws, so perhaps we can make use of other ways to do this. And I note under the special sales scheme, we have reserved approximately 30,000 units for the residents. How can we deal with the money? After all, some lawyers are not familiar with the circumstances. I hope in future we can do better. We can allow residents to receive money faster. How can we do more in providing support to them? How can we encourage them to accept this plan?
Well, DFS has got nothing to do with the $1 billion. Please make it brief in your reply, please. Thank you, Mr. Leung. The engagement team will continue to work. Now, the key thing is to let the owners know about the facts and make the decision that is most favorable to them. We will continue to communicate with the remaining 10%, but we have to be realistic. If some owners are not willing to take part, I won't be critical of them. Going forward, whether we talk about the compulsory sale, it would be very undesirable for them. But anyhow, we have to respect their property right. But we will be working very hard continuously. Of those who are willing to talk to us, we'll talk to them. But in any case, we would respect their views. Mr. Chen Shuhong. Chairman, thank you. The government is spending taxpayers' money in the subsidy. The Wang house has not been affected by the fire, but the values and the future development and so on, there are so many issues to contend with. So the government should also acquire the titles for them. This is an exceptional arrangement, and this is understandable because this is unprecedented. You have my support there. I've got a couple of questions. The DFS has already addressed many of the questions. I don't really want to follow up on them, except the $1 billion. You have given us a clear explanation. This would cover the flats with premium pay and premium unpaid. I'm not familiar with this subject. The government is acquiring the titles. Will the government be using internal solicitors? Or if you hire a solicitor from the private sector, will the solicitor's fee be coming out of the $1 billion? DFS? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chen. The $1 billion covers all the costs. The government also hires outside lawyers. If internal resources cannot cope, we'll certainly come back and discuss with members. Mr. Andrew Lam. Chairman, thank you. The administration is offering the acquisition price that contains an element of compassion. They are higher than the market value. According to the DFS, they expect that they may not be able to acquire all the titles, and they may be resort to invoke the power to acquire on a compulsory basis. Now, the Lands Tribunal normally would use the market value, and as I said, the market value would be lower than the rate that is offered. There are 2 points I'd like to see confirmation. First, if we resort to valuation, the offer price, from my understanding, should not become the reference for the market value. Second, the Secretary said that for the remaining titles, if they are to acquire them, they will not be included in this funding proposal, and that would be for another funding proposal. Is that right? DFS? Thank you. The second point, Mr. Lam, is absolutely correct. If we have to go down the legislative path to acquire the titles, then we need to have the financial resources. On the first question, now we are talking about $8,000 per square foot or $10,500 per square foot. We made it very clear that the government has balanced empathy, reasonableness, and legality. We prioritize empathy. That the Institute of Surveyors had the figures $6,000 and $8,000 respectively. Even comparing with that value, it is 30% more. I'm sure the actual valuation would be much lower than what are being on offer here. Mr. Lee Chen-keung. Chairman, thank you. 2 points about the legal fees. There is an NGO that is offering the subsidy, and they will be providing the pro bono lawyers. Now for this $1 billion, now for Chong'a Road West, it would take in population in 2030, would the $1 billion cover the rental subsidy? Well, the question has not been answered. Chairman, Chong'a Road West, it go beyond the 27th of June. That would, if they move in 28, 29, the rental subsidy would continue. It's got nothing to do with the $1 billion. That's coming out of the support fund. There is a budget for that. Legal fee, any cap? DFS. Well, we're grateful to the TWGH that renders assistance. My understanding is that they have enough funding. I'm grateful to all the lawyers taking part, and they are charging a package fee. I just got in touch with the TWGH. They think that they've got $30 million, and that would be quite sufficient, and they are prepared to consider adding more to that. Ms. Christine Fong. Chairman, I support the funding proposal of $1 billion to cover all 8 blocks in the title acquisition exercise. This says a lot about the solidarity in Hong Kong and the commitment. And I hope that the residents can come out of the distress and start a new life. Now, this additional $1 billion would be for the purposes of title acquisition, as the DFS said. And you also mentioned a moment ago that many of the Wang residents are asking whether they were allowed access to their places again. You said there would be a reasonable arrangement. That the XYAB, the SB, and the CAS, the care teams, have been rendering assistance. So the funding would be coming out of internal resources. Mr. Lam raised a question earlier on if some of them are reluctant to be part of the 90%, if there are any legal disputes which will go to the Lands Tribunal or judicial review, would the engagement team be explaining to them about the legal fees if they were to lose and they will have to pay for the legal costs on both sides? Has this been explained to them in uncertain terms? Well, DFS got nothing to do with the $1 billion today. DFS, very simply, whether we go down the legislative path. I keep saying that there is such a possibility, but is it a foregone conclusion? No, because we have to talk to the relevant people. Now, you mentioned the Lands Tribunal. They would use the Land Resumption Ordinance. If we have a new legislation, would that be the same mechanism? We haven't quite discussed this yet. If we have to legislate to acquire the title, we have to offer compensation in accordance with the law. Now, Ms. Fong mentioned the situation. I'm sure that under the new legislation, there would be an appeal mechanism. If they dispute the offer price, then there would be a mechanism to deal with that. Mr. Dominic Lee, Chairman, thank you. The Wang disaster is really a source of distress, and the government has been really swift in their action, and this shows high efficiency on the part of the government. The acquisition is really humane in its approach, and I think this is something that we should commend. Now, this $1 billion, some members have already asked, what does it include in the whole process? Now, when it comes to the personal belongings, And if there are legal disputes or if there are any legal proceedings, would the $1 billion be covering all these legal disputes? DFS, well, thank you very much for your commentation, Mr. Lee. This $1 billion only include the acquisition price. Now, let's say we have to deal with the legal proceedings, then the DOJ will be dealing with that, and the $1 billion will not be spent on that area. Mr. Vincent Cheng, Chairman, thank you. Also, I support this $1 billion funding proposal. We don't really want to see the blaze happen, but the government has really taken a lot of action to help the residents. The Secretary has arranged the viewing tours for the residents. Now, many members have raised a lot of questions. Para 7E for owners who are unable to complete the procedures due to special circumstances, the government will exercise flexibility. Now, what do you mean by special circumstances, and what is the flexibility? Will you extend the period for them to complete the process? What flexibility are we talking about? The $7.8 billion, if we go beyond $7.8 billion, what's going to happen? Would there be any cap? If it is below $7.8 billion, or will you be calling back the money? DFS, thank you very much, Mr. Ching. $7.8 billion would be sufficient. If there is a surplus, the money will go back to the public coffers. On the first question, flexibility. Indeed, if they need more time, I did cite an example in the press conference. If they are flying back to Hong Kong and there is a bit of a delay in the flight, we will not be stopping them. If there is any probate issue, which is likely to happen if the probate hasn't been completed, there will be a flexibility. In the entire scheme, we would offer them flexibility, like they join the next batch instead of this particular batch. We do have a lot of HOS flats available. We will make arrangement for them.
Professor Alex Fan. Chair, I speak in support of the funding proposal. Owners starting from February of this year are faced with the complexity of maintenance for their homes, uncertainties, and with respect to the residents' private rights, the administration has adopted the approach of having a 75% majority and choosing to intervene. I believe it is prudent and it is suited to the principle of procedural justice, and it shows, according to paragraph 8 of the paper, over 75% of the owners have plans to join the long-term housing arrangement plan. But I also note online there are some misconceptions about the agreement for sale and purchase. Some say if owners have signed the agreement, if someone makes a challenge on the acquisition plan, for example, by lodging a judicial review, the owners would have to make a compensation as well. I hope the administration will make clear to residents with the compensation standards. They are actually standards that are adopted for general property transactions. And when, in particular, would owners have to make compensation and indemnify others, we should make clear of that to owners. If owners declare correctly that the properties are not involved in some undisclosed third-party interest litigation, in future it will just be taken up by the the administration, and if there is unlimited liability, you should make clear to the owners. And we have in the paper, there are different options available to the residents, and we can see in paragraph 10 we will have a 1 billion additional commitment, so that the total cost for acquisition will go up from $6.8 billion to $7.8 billion to cover Wang House's pragmatic approach. Well, members, today is a finance committee meeting. I remind members again, we are just discussing the $1 billion additional commitment. Thank you, Ms. Common Khan. Thank you. We have already set up the company to acquire the property rights of Wang Court. And with there being a general consensus, the government has intervened to purchase the titles of Wang House as well. I think the government is practicing a pragmatic and compassionate approach. We have seen with the $1 billion additional commitment, paragraph 7 says, again, if in the end we have less than 75% of the Wang House owners sign the agreement for sale and purchase, the administration may not move forward with the acquisition. So I want to ask, with the funding injection, can it wait until after 15th of October so that we know what will happen then? And I think with the Wang Court Property Rights Acquisition Limited being wholly owned by the Financial Secretary Incorporated is a good approach. And we actually have a legal basis under Chapter 1015 Financial Secretary Incorporation Ordinance. Can you talk about the governance structure? Will we have a board of directors monitoring the use of the funding? Thank you. Deputy Financial Secretary, thank you, Ms. Common Khan, for your support. We talk about the $1 billion being a commitment. That means funding will be released at appropriate occasions, so it can be dispersed in one go or over a period of time. For those receiving money, they will just get the funding right away. For those who are purchasing subsidized sale flats, we will pay the funds out to the housing society in due course. As for the governance structure, I'll let Ms. Winnie Ho speak on that. Well, I am the director of the limited company, and we have other public officers being in the governance structure. All right, we have 3 other members waiting to speak. After Mr. Ellen Chan has spoken, I'll put the item to vote. Would members please come back to the conference room for voting? Thank you, Ms. Julia Lau. Thank you. I support the funding proposal, but many of those in the sector as well as citizens want to have better transparency of the amount. Would the administration consider publishing regular reports, such as every 3 or 4 months, to talk about how the money is spent so that for the public it will be very transparent? Thank you, Deputy Financial Secretary. That is what we'll do, but of course you may not want us to do that every day either. We will have an agreement, and as said, following the progress, we will be transparent about the costs. As for the frequency, I'll probably work it out with my colleagues, but we're more than willing to do that. Thank you. Mr. Wu Yingpeng. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy Financial Secretary. According to the paper, we have 77% of the owners of Wang House indicating their wish to join the plan, but then this is just their intention. What happens in reality may be different. If by 15th of October if we have a percentage that is just slightly lower than 75%, such as 73%. And if individual owners, due to estate disputes or ownership disputes, cannot join the plan, will the administration terminate the acquisition scheme regardless? Can the administration consider a grace period for those who have justifiable reasons for delaying the signing to provide better support to owners? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wu Yingping, for your questions. The paper's figures are past figures. We have already now 1,786 households signing the intention. And in Wang House, we have 240 households in total. 221 of them has signed the document signifying their intention. We are therefore quite confident that we can meet the 75% household threshold by 15th of October. In fact, residents of the Wang Court have carefully reached a conclusion, and they have not really changed their stances. If we are just slightly, we have a percentage that's just slightly lower than 75% by October, we'll practice reasonable flexibility. But right now, it's hard for us to say what that kind of flexibility is. Thank you. Mr. Alan Chen, thank you, Chair. I would like to express my support for the inclusion of Wang House in the long-term housing plan, and to increase the commitment from $4 billion to $5 billion to cover the 248 units of Wang House. So the total cost will be $7.8 billion from $6.8 billion before. I understand the approach by the administration to make use of a standardized acquisition price. It's simpler, but then for residents, they may not understand. After all, the physical condition of Wang House units is different from other houses. So what are the valuation standards adopted by the administration? How much of an upward percentage or margin do we have above $1 billion in commitment? Thank you. Deputy Financial Secretary, you have already answered these many times, but so perhaps you can just provide a simple response. Thank you, Chair. We want to have different options for residents, and for Wang House, as I said earlier, the residents, even though their units are still in a livable condition, they are traumatized or they're worried about future management of the house. So they wanted the administration's proposal to cover them, which is why we chose to cover them under our arrangements. And in the end, if some owners say they won't sell their properties to us, we understand that we will accept that, and we may consider legislating for resumption of such ownership. And by then, we will probably need valuation, as Mr. Andrew Lam suggested earlier. Right now, we are focusing on the mutually agreed arrangement, and we believe we are providing good, more than reasonable compensation. So that is what we have in mind, basically. All right, that's it for the question and answer session. I now put to vote SCR 2026-2728. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Will those against please raise their hands? I think most of the members who voted on the item are in favor of the item. I declare the item approved. All right, public officers for this item may leave the conference room. We have other items to be put to vote. FCR 2026-27-29. This item invites approval of this Finance Committee of the proposal discussed at the Establishment Subcommittee meeting on 24th of June for the proposal of EC 2026-27-6, so that with immediate effect upon approval of the Finance Committee, the creation of the time-limited post of Deputy Principal Government Counsel for about 5 years up to 31st of March 2031 to take forward new and significant policy initiatives to facilitate going global of mainland enterprises, as well as the redeployment of permanent directorate posts of one principal government counsel and deputy principal government counsel to provide dedicated directorate support for the legal and policy work of the alternative dispute resolution unit. In accordance with paragraph 3A of the Finance Committee procedure, as the subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of the item, nor is there a joint request to discuss the item, no further discussion is to be conducted by the Finance Committee. I now put to vote the document. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Will those against please raise their hands? I think most of those who voted on the item are in favor of the item. I declare the item approved. Next, FCR 2026-27-30. This item invites the approval of this Finance Committee of a recommendation made by the Public Works Committee on 29th of June for the proposal in PWSC 2026-27-10 to upgrade works number 115 AP to Category A in money of the day prices. The estimated cost is $2 billion and $300 million and $30 million to expand the Aberdeen Tavern Shelter in accordance with paragraph 3A of Finance Subcommittee procedure. As the Public Works Subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of the item by the Finance Committee, nor is there a joint request from 3 members to discuss this item, we will not further discuss this item. I now put the item to vote. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Will those who are against please raise their hands? I think most of those who voted on the item are in favor of the item. I declare the item approved.
Next item, FCR 2026-27-31. This is to ask members to endorse the proposal at its meeting on the 29th of June to upgrade the remainder of 1A1CD entitled Drainage Improvement Works in Eastern District, remaining works to Cat A at an estimated cost of $2,718.2 million in money of the day prices. According to the PWSC, the FC is not recommended to have further discussion. And I'll put paper FCR 31 to the vote. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against? I think the members voting are in favor. The proposal is endorsed. Item 5, FCR 26-27-32. This item seeks members to endorse the PWC's proposal at its meeting on the 3rd of July, as included in paper PWC 15, to upgrade 70 EG to Category A at an estimated cost of $194.1 million in MOD prices. That's the University of Hong Kong transformation of KK Leung Building into Research and Development Hub. According to PWSC's proposal, the FC is not recommended to have further discussion. And I'll put paper FCR 26-27-32 to the vote. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against? I think the members voting are in favor of the proposal. The proposal is endorsed. Item 6, FCR 26-27-33. This item seeks members' endorsement of the PwC's proposal at its meeting on the 3rd of July regarding PwC Paper 13 to upgrade part of A27CL as 914CL entitled Dredging Management and Capping Works for the provision of sediment disposal facility in the southern waters of Hong Kong, Phase 1, to category A at an estimated cost of $684.2 million in money of the day price. According to the PwC, the FC is not recommended to have any further discussion. I now put paper FCR 262733 to the vote. With those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against? I think the members voting are in favour of the proposal. Proposal is endorsed. Item 7, FCR 20261734. This paper seeks members' endorsement of the PwC's proposal on 3rd of July in its paper PwC 14 to upgrade 66EF to category A at an estimated cost of $638.8 million in money of the day prices for Chinese University of Hong Kong to build an engineering building at the central campus. Like we did before, the PwC doesn't recommend that FC have any further discussion. And I'll put FCR 262734 to the vote. With those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against? I think the majority of members voting are in favour. The proposal is endorsed. Item 8. FCR 262735. This paper seeks members' endorsement of the PwC paper dated 29th June 2026 regarding paper PwC 11 to upgrade 207GK to category A at an estimated cost of $9,700.1 million in money of the day terms. That's for the joint user complex and joint user central or general office building at area 29 Kwu Tung North New Development Area. The PwC does not recommend that FC have any further discussion. And I'll put FCR 262735 to the vote. With those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against? I think the majority of members voting are in favour of the proposal. The proposal is endorsed. Meeting is now adjourned.